going to let Carol introduce herself, because that would be far better than an introduction I can give, but I've known Carol for about 30 years now, and the reason why I thought she'd be so good is because I think she's got a great story to tell. She's got some fantastic insights into learning and development and her own personal journey, and I think she'll be a really entertaining speaker, so line you up for a full
Thank you, okay, thanks. So I guess what I'd really like to do is start by saying the most important word in the whole of my talk. It's a really simple one, but it's just thank you. Genuinely, thank you so much for turning up. When I was sort of thinking about preparing for today, I realised how nervous I was. And I've been trying to work out what am I really nervous about. I think I thought nobody might show up. So genuinely, because I'm not a famous speaker, right? But I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think I'm here because there might be something in my story or something in my experience that really might resonate with you. So I'm sort of going to attempt to do two things over the next maybe 20, 25 minutes, and that is to share the sort of roadmap of my career and I suppose how I got to the point where I wanted to set up my own business and then how it's gone from there. But particularly the bits that I wonder might resonate the most with you are those aspects which is, so what did I learn? What did it teach me about myself or about women in business maybe, or just about people in business? I don't know if you've had the opportunity to listen to speakers who are advertised as motivational. I don't know if you ever get an opportunity to be invited to talk where the person is advertised as a specialist in and they're going to come and motivate you. I've had that experience and I personally don't like it. Because often onto the stage comes this perfect person in a perfect suit with a perfect tan, and they begin to then tell me in the next half an hour how they've got everything in their life sussed. They make £1 squillion an hour, they've got a wife that loves them, because it's generally a man, they've got a house on the beach, they've got this, and I just feel like I sit in the audience and blow raspberries, because it's not real for me. So I wonder whether the reason I'm here is because I'm like you. Hardworking, wanting to do my best, successful, because I think you are, but imperfect and flawed. And it's that I think connects us. So of course we want to be the best of ourselves, we want to do a really good job, but I think really what connects us with each other is often our wobbly bits. That's badly put, our flaws. So I wonder, back to my story today, I wonder whether today some of the bits that might be most helpful are those bits when I am vulnerable, when I share with you not the moments of success, but the moments of indecisiveness or uncertainty. Just before I make a start on the story, I do want to take a great risk and just share with you that I've invited someone very special along today. And it's, sorry Tom, it's my son. So Tom is 17, and for about the last year he's been saying, I really want to come out and see what you do, I really want to come out and hear you speak. And I thought, what better gig than a talk on International Women's Day. So a really warm welcome to you, Tom. So I am currently working as the Managing Director of a training and development consultancy. The company is based in Exeter. We work with organisations all over the UK. Sometimes we go abroad, but primarily we're UK based. And the organisations we work for are really diverse, and that's deliberate. So I can be working, for example, with an organisation such as Age UK, or I might be working with the police, or I might be working with an organisation like Vision Express, the Virgin Group, McDonald's, or it could be the vets. So it's really, really diverse. And what we specialise in as an organisation is, I suppose I could sort of wrap it all up here around the topics of organisational change, cultural change, and behavioural change. And sort of there's a big part of that work is about the individual, okay, which is really a lot of our performance, a lot of our success comes from that real sense of who we are, how we are, and it's about what behaviours really enable us to be the best version of ourselves. So that's the type of stuff we do. The business was started in 1996, and in a sense I was thinking in getting ready to sort of talk to you about it today, what was the motivation behind me wanting to start a business. And I actually feel I want to nick a quote from an amazing woman called Maya Angelou. Some of you may know who she is and what she's done. But she actually said, I've learned that making a living is different to making a life. And for me, that was, I think, the motivation to starting my own business, to wanting to work for myself. It was a recognition that in my 20s, I was working with other organisations that were pretty good. I was working as a trainer, but I was making a living. And for me, what I wanted to do was make a life. And what that means for me is I wanted to do something that didn't feel separate from my life. Have you come across the phrase work-life balance? I don't like it. That's me. I don't like it because it suggests that there's this work part and then there's this life part where everything's really good. And your idea is you've got to get that balance right. I get it. I get the principle behind it. I get what it's about. But for me, the phrase doesn't work. Because maybe this is sad, right? But there's a sense that work is just a part of my life. And that's what I've been striving for. How can I work in a way that it feels an extension of who I am, what I want to be, and how I want to be? Because for me, that feels more sustainable. And so that was the driver behind starting my own business. I started my own business when I was 28, a couple of years ago, right? And actually, the time leading up to that wasn't particularly amazing. I was very average at school. I have to say I was fairly poor at school. I was moderately good at sport, but I wasn't particularly engaged with school. Now, that's a critical part in the story. Because one of the things I feel really strongly about is how we can make learning and development accessible irrespective of who you are and what your background is. I have a bee in my bonnet about education because of my own experience, which was very, very young. I was boxed into not very clever. Because at the time I wasn't engaged enough at school to produce high results in exams. So, Tom, close your eyes, close your ears and your eyes, okay? Cross your legs and everything. Okay, so in a sense, I feel like I slightly fell out of school rather than left school, okay? And what made it tricky is my sister went to Cambridge. So there was tension in the house, right? Because I was really not coming up to the expectations of my parents academically. So I literally left school without a lot of qualifications and thought, oh, flip me, I need to go and get a job. So I literally went and got a job and just literally started grafting. But what school had done is left me with a sense that I was inadequate, a sense that I wasn't very bright. Be clear about the message here. I am incredibly pro-education. What I'm not pro is young people being boxed in too early on and leaving education with a message about themselves which might not be wholly accurate. Okay? Intelligence, as we know, is not simply measured by exams. We see it all around us. We see different levels. We see emotional intelligence, intellectual intelligence, loads of different intelligence. But at the time I was at school, those weren't the messages I heard. So I really spent my 20s working hard, trying to prove myself to myself and to my dad, okay? So the result of that is I did fairly well in the workplace. I got promoted fairly quickly simply because I was quite enthusiastic and I was prepared to work hard. The first job I had was in retail and I pretty much hated it. But one day, the company sent me on a training course. And I remember sitting in the room, looking at the trainer at the front and thinking, you look like you're having a better time than me. They looked like they were really having fun. What happened on that training course is the training course was focused on management and leadership. And I suddenly found myself sitting in an environment where I was enjoying learning, I was relating to the content, and I sort of knew the answers. So that began a journey. I left that training course thinking, that's what I want to do, I want to be a trainer. I had no qualifications, no experience, I just wanted to do it. So what I did is I left retail, because I hated it. Did I tell you that? I think I did, yeah. I left retail and I did a bit of travelling and then I came back and I think I was about 21, 22. So I had to go back and live at home because I had no job. So my dad was chuffed about that. And I went and got a job in a coffee shop and waited, because I knew in my heart I wanted to become a trainer. So eventually, I think about 9 months later, an opportunity came up, and they were looking for a trainer with retail background. And I had been in retail and had got into management in retail, so my CV looked okay. So I went along to the interview, stood in front of them, and simply said this: I have no qualifications, no experience, but I think I've got a heart for this. Hire me for a month and don't pay me. But at the end of this month, if you think I've got potential, send me back to college, educate me. And that's how the journey started. So from about 22, 23, up until about 28, I worked in organisations as a trainer. Eventually, 28, I got to the point where I felt, I'm just trying to think of the word for this, but I just felt not free. So I got to the point where I was a senior trainer. I looked after about 50 other trainers, so it was quite a senior role. But I felt that I was moving further and further away from the very thing I wanted to do, which was talk to people like you, engage with people. Have you ever thought about that? The more senior you get sometimes, the further away you get from the thing that you love. I'm not dissing senior jobs, by the way, but sometimes that's true for people. So I decided that I was going to walk away from the security of a role and actually set up on my own. So, day one. Day one is a scary place. I set up with 3 things. A sort of dream in my head that I could maybe do this, a completely empty wall planner with no work booked, and a big poster in my office of Martin Luther King, who is an idol of mine. He is definitely a hero. And I remember looking at the wall planner and thinking, I'm going to have to get some work from somewhere. And what I did is I had 3 people that I knew that were sort of in the field that I was working in, who I really trusted. And I went to each of them and said, do you think genuinely I could make it as a trainer on my own? And I had said to myself that if I had 3 yeses, then that would be the green light. And I remember coming away from those meetings with 3 yeses and driving home going, shit. I've now got to respond to that. I've now actually got to respond to that gauntlet I threw down. So what I effectively did is started with nothing, which is very common for people to start their own business, except that I did have a belief. And what I believed was this: training and development is a very busy and competitive field. There are loads of people doing it. And if you're working in that field, or you engage with people in that field, we can do everything. My belief at the time, naive maybe at the beginning, but I found it to be true, is I thought that there was a real opportunity if you were different. So for me, I felt that there was a real gap for trainers who were very good facilitators. I felt that there was a real gap for trainers who knew how to work in the field of behaviour, well-being, emotional intelligence. Now we are talking about 22, 23 years ago, because I think we are a lot stronger around these topics now. But at the time it wasn't massive, and I felt that there was an opportunity. So that's what I started with, a belief that I could fill that gap. And in a way, as cliched as it seems, or as it sounds, what I did is just slowly build it. And for the first 7 or 8 years of the business, I worked on my own, literally just doing all the delivery myself. And then about 8 or 9 years in, I woke up one day, literally sat up in bed and thought, I'm knackered. I can't do this anymore. I'm really tired. I've been doing this constantly. And by the way, I'd had 2 kids in the meantime. So I'd had 2 children who I then hadn't looked after. So the arrangements in our family were that my husband was the stay-at-home dad. So effectively, 4 weeks after giving birth, I handed the child to the dad and went, I got to go back to work. Because at the time, we only generated income through my work. So there was that real focus that I just had to get out there and do it. So about 8 or 9 years in, I was knackered. So what I then did is I really questioned whether I ought to do something different. So what I ended up doing is I'd done a piece of work for a client who really liked the piece of work I'd done, really responded to it. And it was a big law firm in the southwest, and they really liked the work, and they're very excited. And they ended up saying, come and join us. We're looking for an HR director, which was very grand. We want you to come and join us. And I was at a real stage where I was tired, I didn't know whether I wanted to do training, so I joined them. And a year later, I resigned and went back to running the business. Because this is what I learned. I learned that one of the great things about the job I do is effectively I am paid to often go into organisations and say what isn't being said. I am paid to say what you're not saying, or to think what you might not be thinking yet. I'm paid to add value through original ideas. Can you see this, right, guys? What I realised is when I went to work as an employee, and I'm not necessarily suggesting your organisation is anything like this, but the organisation I went to join actually were critical of original thinking. They actually didn't want me to come up with new ideas. So when I'd been their trainer, they loved it. But when I then joined the part of the team, would sit around the table going, hold on a minute, is there another way we should do that? I was told to don't be difficult, don't be challenging. So for me, I realised that, do you know what I really enjoy? I enjoy talking about the things that you guys are not thinking about or haven't thought about yet. So I decided to go back into the business and essentially change it. So what I then did over the next 10 years was grow it. So I gathered more trainers around me, changed the type of clients we work with, updated the material completely, modernised it, made it better, pushed ourselves even more, and in a sense, that brings us to the journey today. So in a sense, that's quite quick. I've sort of quickly told you what the journey is, because what I really wanted to spend a bit, just the remaining time left talking about, is not so much my story, but some of the things that I have learnt or I think matter to any of us. So I'm not sure my lessons are relevant if you're somebody that wants to run your own business. I think the lessons are relevant if you are just somebody that wants to feel fulfilled and wants to feel happy in what they do. So is that okay if I can share some of my lessons? And I would love it if at any time in the next 10 minutes you have an alternative view or what's that mean, Carol? You feel free to speak up if you want to. There is an opportunity for you to ask some things at the end, but feel free to respond any way you want to this. So, what do I feel I've learnt from my journey? Well, the one at the top of my list is that I think growth, be it business growth or personal growth, I think growth comes from being scared. I honestly can tell you that every part of my business growth has been when I've said yes to a question that I've not known the answers to. Every single time I feel as a business we have grown or stepped up or literally increased our turnover or increased our clients has been when I've been sitting down with the customer and they've said, right, Carol, what we really would like some support on is designing a mentoring program, or what we'd really like to do some work on is changing our culture here, or what we'd really like to. And over the years, I have decided to adopt a very simple philosophy, which is, unless you are talking to me about something that has nothing to do with my field, the answer I will give you is, yeah, I can do that. I can help you with that. And the amount of times I've given that line in a pitch, got the opportunity, then walked out and sat in the car and gone, and words have come out of my mouth along the lines of, how am I going to do that? I'll tell you, that is my constant philosophy. there is something really interesting about agreeing to an opportunity that you don't quite know the answer to. I find that really fascinating. It evokes in me an emotion of excitement and fear. Do you know that edge? Do you ever feel that in work? That sense of, because at some level, I know that by the time the deadline comes, I will know the answer. Because there is that much information out there, there's that much support and help out there, that I will find the answer. I will, and by the time I come back to that customer, I will have the package, or I will know the answer, I will know how to do it. And it's never failed. A bit of a risk taker, but oh yeah.
How do you know that's the right answer?
In what sense? What do you mean by the right answer?
The client. The client doesn't know what the right answer is. And you say, here you are, this is what I'm giving you. But how do you justify that is the right answer?
I guess by results. So ultimately a result will tell you it's right. But I think sometimes, there's an argument about the concept of right is quite subjective. So often the answer that I come back to or the solution is the beginning of the journey with the client. So I might come back and say, right, here's how I think it can be, or here's how I think it can look. And actually then as we begin, I might go, oh, hold on a minute, actually I think we can make that better or sharper. Because I don't feel that to make a start, you have to have it completely nailed and buttoned down. I think as long as you sort of know the first part, then you can actually work it out as you're going along. I don't know if that sounds cavalier, but it just sounds, that's just my experience.
It's realistic, yeah.
Yeah, right. But can you hear that first sort of tip I'm trying to share with you here, which is, I suppose it depends on your character here, but I'm somebody that if you give me a potential challenge or an opportunity, and I could easily say, actually, no, that's not for me, or no, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you with that. For me, the fear of that opportunity going by is greater than the fear that I'm going to go yes and not be perfect. I'll take the risk of it not being perfect because I know that between you and me, and if we trust each other, I'll make it so. Does that make sense? Because the other option is no, because I'm not 100%, I'll walk away. And there is something in me that I can't. And I don't think that's about running a business. I think that can apply to any of us. Where does your growth come from? And how limiting are you of yourself? I work with a lot of amazing adults like you that don't fulfill ultimately what they could because they limit themselves, because they have an internal script which is, I don't want to make a cock up, I don't want to fail, I don't want to get it wrong. I would encourage you to get rid of that script in your head. Have you ever noticed we have a real lack of congruence between the phrase mistakes and learning opportunities and our actual behaviour? We don't behave like that at all. We're too scared to. The organisation will tell you, make mistakes, that's how we learn. And you make a mistake and I'll kick your ass. No, but can you see that can happen? Maybe not here. Okay, so tip 1, growth comes from being scared. Maybe, I don't know. The other thing I've really learned is that I don't need everyone's approval. I don't know where you're at with that one. I think I spent a lot of my 20s and 30s, perhaps, seeking everyone's approval. And that can waste a lot of energy and time, because it's not possible. And so what I am now is a lot better at working out, so I've got commercial head on, who needs to approve of you? Who do you need to have that clear relationship with? Who do you need to have giving you feedback that your work is at the standard or level it needs to be? But watch yourself, that you don't spend a lot of time wanting everyone to like you, everyone to have to agree with you. Does anybody carry that a bit with them, that you'd be prepared to admit? We've got some humans out there, that's reassuring. Yeah, so really challenge that. Whose approval do you really need? And why is it everybody's? It doesn't need to be. Okay. Another tip I want to give you is listen to your emotions. That's what I've learned. Listen to them. They don't lie to you. They can overwhelm you, but your feelings are the one thing that's true in you guys, okay? But what you've got to watch, and here's the risk statement, because I'm really definitely speaking to women here, but you know what? Men in the room might go, actually I identify with that exactly the same, Carol. You've got to watch the emotion of guilt. Guilt is a really common emotion, but research shows that women are really prone to it. Do you know why that might be?
For me, it's working mum guilt. That might be separate.
I don't think it is. It's just a form of guilt, yeah. That one resonates with me. One of the reasons behind why it seems that women in particular feel a lot more guilt is because for thousands of years, women have been given a message which is, be nice, don't hurt people, play nice, help people. And I think somewhere in there, if we don't hear or see ourselves acting that out, we feel bad. I think there's a link to confidence as well. And so what we see is that the conversations women have about themselves, not being good enough, not being there for everybody else, seem to be louder than the conversations that men have about that. Do the men in the room have a view on that? Because I can't live your perspective. I've only got my perspective on that one. But just wondered if you guys ever thought that guilt is something that is more female-based than male.
I've never thought of it like that before.
Okay.
From experience, I think sometimes some senior ladies, some senior women can be a little bit over the top because they really want us to send out a really strong message saying I'm not weak, which comes across the wrong way. So rather than being a strong woman, they come across as a very arrogant woman.
And that's the dilemma. That's the dilemma for women who are told to be strong. Is that when they are, that's often how they're described. So what we do see is we do see a real difference in how men and women are judged on the traits they show. So a man may show assertiveness and openness and candour, and we would see that as strong and commercially minded and powerful. Right? A woman can show, or could show exactly the same, and we would say she's trying too hard. So there's something really interesting going on here. You know, we are in such a modern society where hopefully issues around diversity and inclusion and equality are really up there. Yet actually just in us, we are so socialised about how we see men and women still. And even I can be guilty of that sometimes. I think it's really powerful. Watch the guilt, guys, is guess what I'm just sharing there, okay? All right? And be mindful, women, you are more prone to it. In fact, I think it's emotion designed for women. Okay, right, so, Anne, let me just follow this on, okay? So one of the other things I've learnt in my career is instead of trying to be heard by shouting louder than your male colleagues, say something different. Say something original. I have been in countless environments where the noise in the room is loud. And to try and compete with that on a volume basis, I probably won't win. So what I do is to try and get myself heard, or to try and get myself noticed, or to get a sense of recognition or value, I make sure that I'm the person in the room that's saying what somebody else hasn't thought of. So be an original thinker rather than a big gob, basically, in organisations. Okay? So often, again, if I can speak to women, particularly on this one, there's often this thing about how do women get themselves heard? How do they get themselves heard over the noise? well, say something different. And I want to encourage you that that's not very difficult. So if I can take a risk here, there's very little original and innovative thinking in the workplace. We talk about it, we talk about how we want it, we even recruit on it. And then the minute the person joins, we tell them how we do it around here. But I've thought about this. We're looking for innovative, creative thinkers. And you go, oh, that's me, that is. I'm going to go and apply. We then apply, and the person goes, are you an original, innovative, creative thinker? And you go, I think so. The person goes, well, you're welcome. And you come in on day one and go, right, this is how we do it around here. What we are still in the business of, I think, is rewarding compliance. I'm not saying, let's go start a revolution, but at least intellectually start one. And that is linked to something else I just wanted to share with you before I begin to finish. Read a lot. That's the other thing I would advise. And that might be through the internet, or it might just be through some good books. But what I would encourage you to do is don't read traditional, boring management leadership books. I roll my eyes, sorry, I work in that field. Read books that are quirky. Read books that are just come at it from a different angle. The reason why I say that is all of my original, something different, something I haven't heard before, it's just because I've read things that are just slightly off-centre. I can give this to Danny to share with you if any of you are interested in this. I just listed down a couple of books that I've read recently, and they're smart, and they're challenging, and they don't only, I think, help you, I don't know, it just gives you ideas that are really relevant in workplace. So you should read I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King. You should read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. You should read The Forgiveness Project by Marina Cantazzino. That was a tough one. You should read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, because it's funny and it's clever. Forgive the language, you get the point. You should read The War on Women by Sue Lloyd-Roberts. You should read Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, if you're a woman. You should read Every Woman by Jess Phillips. Get it? Now, you may have read some of these already, but these aren't women books only. They are just books that are really reflecting modern thinking in society. So if you want to be an original thinker, if you want to start sounding different, and that's how you want to get noticed, read some really good stuff, right? And I guess the one that I just perhaps wanted to finish with is where I started, which is, one of the other things I've learned is that perfectionists are irritating. That actually putting myself under pressure to never make a mistake, to never get it wrong, to always know the answer is too unrealistic. I can't do it. I don't have the ability to do it. And in fact, I think it's about understanding that there is a real difference between confidence and bravado. So confidence for me just feels more genuine. So for me, confidence is my ability to tell you when I'm good, what I know about, when I feel solid, and also the confidence to say, nope, I haven't got a diddly clue at the minute. I'm going to need to go away and think about that. Or, actually, I made a decision, I don't think it's right. I want to change my mind. And I crave for organisations that are filled with leaders that sound like that. I crave organisations, I crave that we are led by people who have the confidence to say, do you know what, I'll change my mind. Or, thought about that, I've got another idea. Or, do you know what do you think? I'm not sure I have a view on this, what do you think? So, I guess what I've learned is it is genuinely okay to not know all the answers, but people won't love you less. And in fact, my point earlier on, I think we connect with the times where we're not always certain. I think a degree of uncertainty makes you humble. You see, that's what confidence is. Confidence isn't, I've got it sussed. I've never met someone who's got it sussed. Never. I've met someone who thinks that they're projecting that. I've never met in the last 22 years of meeting people Anyone who's got it's asked all the time. I've met people like me. Sometimes we get it, and sometimes we don't. Does that make sense? Considering the day we are today, I want to finish with a quote. I really like this one. It's by my mate Maya again, Maya Angelou. And she said, "I am grateful to be a woman. I must have done something great in another life." And I really liked that. And I just wanted to finish by just going, good on her. That was such a good quote. So I guess, without it being a formal thing now, I just almost want to go, what do you think of that? Because really what I've been doing, I'm not at the front here because I'm right. I'm at the front here because I'm opinionated. Just been sharing my opinions, sharing my thoughts about some of the things that I've learned. But I don't know, you might have really different thoughts and really different opinions. I'd just love to hear them, or any questions you've got. So yeah, I'll take a seat, which is a sign that it's not about me anymore, right? It's a sign it's about you.
Sorry, it's me again. I just wanted to say that was a really good speech, good presentation there. Within HR, we're really trying to encourage diversity of gender at a more senior level. What sort of things do you think we can do to encourage that within the workforce from a male perspective and a female perspective?
So for me, there's a couple of things in there, in that question. I feel I like one of them pick. So I guess the first thing is do your senior leaders recognise that there's a responsibility they have in this process? Well, there's some really nice nods there. That's really cool. What do they think their responsibility is? That isn't a trick question. That's just, there's no trick here. Just like, because that's actually cool for them to even get it. But what is it that they think that is? Yeah.
So I only joined a couple of months ago, and I joined an organisation where, in my induction, they talked through the board. Who's the board? I went, oh, so what are you doing to challenge diversity? And I was taken to one side and told not to mention it again. So in my interview here, I was like, I've got to get this right. I cannot make it.
Yeah, learn from that. Yeah,
so
right.
my bar is set quite high. And,
Yeah.
and I genuinely felt actually HR gave us the right answers. So I'm not saying we're perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it's recognised. So I was genuinely encouraged by HR.
I think they've recognised that it's not a case of bringing people in at that level. You have to start at entry level as well, and make sure that you're encouraging people to go on.
Do you, so in terms of coming back to the question, I do want to reflect something that is really important. Actually, you're right, quite ahead of the game if your answers are that already. Because I think there is a real difference in organisations between the intellectual acknowledgement of the importance and commercial value of diversity and etc. But behaviourally, most organisations don't then live those statements. And I think that is the biggest challenge an organisation has. It's to take an ideal, to take a desire, to take a wish, which you guys sounds like you're there, and actually translate it into day-to-day behaviour and language. So for me, I would be really interested in things like, not just from a recruitment point of view, which is the classic thing, isn't it? How are we recruiting to ensure gender and diversity? But it's things about what is the language that we use between each other? What is the way we are between each other? And also, for me, it's establishing structures and processes that are going to support the ideal. So, for example, often the recruitment process in an organisation doesn't match the ideal. Because what we see evidence of, which is a bit depressing stats actually, but it's true, is that women are scored in recruitment significantly different to men. So, for example, the research shows, this isn't just me banging the drum here, the research shows that men will be judged on and scored highly for around questions around results and what have you achieved, and we see patterns that men generally, this isn't kicking men, this is just what's been observed, okay? Men generally talk about, I achieved, I saved this much money, I did this. Whereas when women are being recruited, they often talk about we. They often talk about team success rather than personal success. Women have a tendency to talk about their behaviours rather than actually their results. So that's just an example to illustrate that in a modern organisation, we need to take things like recruitment and really challenge the questions we're asking, but also what we're listening out for. So what a solution can be that when we are interviewing potentially male employees, we make sure that we ask them to talk about behaviours as well as results. When we are talking to women, we encourage them to talk about results, not just behaviours. Can you see this? So that isn't feeding the candidate. It is really trying to level a playing field that is really uneven. And for me, that was just an example of how you take an ideal, which is really good, and land it through your systems and processes.
I think to some extent we've got that because with CVs we kind of anonymise those, so we don't know whether they're
That is really good.
yeah, we do.
I'm going to
No,
stop
that-
now.
Okay.
Appreciate it. So would I, but women's.
So they should be anonymised.
But can I just add one other thing? And in a way, can I take a risk? See, I've got to wait for your permission to be able to do that.
Yes, you can.
So the phrase that you used earlier on about women actually was the thing I would want to challenge throughout the organisation, that this idea that women are sometimes over the top. I think you said something like, some women go over the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think women in leadership is great. I mean, there's some real leaders downstairs from the IT department. So Claire Tucker is one, a very, I don't know if anyone else knows her, she's a very straight talking person. She's just says it as it is, and she's a strong, assertive person, but she's not arrogant. Just qualify that. If a male comes across as arrogant as well, then he's a few choice words for him as well. But, so it's just that sometimes I think women in a higher position sometimes feel they need to just try too hard and just become that arrogant sort of person like some men do. And it's, I think they get more respect from being a strong leader than being an arrogant leader.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
I think that's probably because you just create this, I guess, what you perceive as being a leader, and at the moment you see a lot of masculine traits in that leader, and that obviously like inhibits men who don't display those traits from becoming leaders, but also I guess forces women to think they have to be a certain way to be that leader. So actually what you need to do is challenge what you see as leaders and get that right, and then people don't try and conform to something that's actually pretty damaging for everyone, I think.
So I would support that. That's what I see. So it's a bit like, we're often challenging women, aren't we, to be more confident, to be more assertive. And I do hear that actually you are describing that you like that. So I do hear that. But we're often asking women to do that. Here's my view. Women know that. Women know that they need to be assertive. Women are assertive. Women know that they don't need to compete with men. They can be themselves, just as men can be themselves. Here's the reality for lots of women, is that when they then are those traits, they're punished for it. So what we've got a contradiction going on in some organisations between, what we say we want, and then when we see it, we're uncomfortable. And this is to do with socialisation over the last thousands of years. And this is going to take some time for all of us. If you just look around at media, you look around at movies, you look around at TV, we are still putting men and women into stereotypical roles. So of course, little wonder that actually, however much we say, come on, we're all equal and we all have, we can all be ourselves, we still sit there and go, oh, she's a bit hard. We are much more likely to use the word hard and bossy of women than we will of men. Men don't have it easy either. Men don't be so soft, don't be so, there's all of that stuff still floating around. But I really am interested in, what do we think leadership is? What do we think confidence is? And that would be something I would really be interested in you, if you have a moment and you want to think about this, to write down what you think confidence is. Write down what you think assertiveness is. Because guess what? Confidence is sometimes being collaborative and collegiate and facilitative. Sometimes it's being direct and straight and uncompromising. Here's the problem. We're too simplistic in how we see these concepts. So I guess that's sort of just some other views there. Thank you for it.
I was going to sort of build on that, and then you're going to tangent, that's fine. So
That's
I
fine.
also think we need to make sure we really help ourselves. So I know that I have sometimes not applied for jobs because I couldn't tick every box, and I should have done. I know that I've never once asked for a promotion or a pay rise because I think that it should just land in my lap and I'm too scared to ask. But I also know that women are their own worst enemies because I've heard women say, oh, no, she got that job. Oh, I don't know, you know. And we've got to stop doing that. We've got to support our own sisterhood, you know what I mean?
There is something though for me, which is I know we're trying to promote women and leadership and all of that, and the dialogue is quite strong at the moment, and that's brilliant. And I'm secretly hoping that no one thinks I do what I do because I'm ticking a box. You know, there's that. Yeah, and I think that's a real balance. Because this might be wrong, but I've always kind of felt I need to be a little bit better, work a little bit harder, and just, but not be a man, hopefully. But you know, it's quite difficult because you're kind of looking for role models and things. And like you, I've had some that are really shouty and aggressive. Actually, it's a tough one because I guess you want to look up to people, don't you? And they don't have to be women, by the way, but it's that kind of like, ooh.
You don't need to be like that to be a good leader.
No, I totally agree with you. Be more
Sometimes you do, sometimes you have to just rule them.
But when you do have to, it's so much more powerful when you
Yeah.
just go, right, okay, we've talked about this enough now, this is what we're doing.
I think it's the point we've been talking earlier on. I think it's about, your organisation might be thinking about doing this already, but this is what I would be encouraging you definitely to do, which is take these big ideas around leadership, confidence. You could do team working. You could take these sort of core behaviours or core, empowerment. That's quite a key word, isn't it? Etc. Take it and challenge it, redefine it. And I don't mean chuck baby out with bathwater here, but define it in the context of non-gender language. Because actually, the reality of it is why there are still women. Your story is similar to loads of women I meet, which is the sense of I've got to work harder, which could lead to me sometimes being a bit of a triumph sometimes. But do you know what I mean? Do I feel I've got to work harder, be more of a super person, etc. And it's because we're still navigating through what has been historically male environment. Wouldn't it be interesting if we could do something where we then ask men to navigate through a female environment, and navigate through that? And it's that sort of way of thinking. So I would be really excited if you guys were saying, as an organisation, we are going to be much less cliched in how we define this language. And we're going to name it. Guys, because we tend to use language and make an assumption that everyone knows what we mean. The classic one is empathy, isn't it? Go and show empathy. Everyone goes, yeah, I do that. And I go, what does empathy mean? Don't know, but I know I must do it. Go and be confident. Yeah, I do that. What is confidence? I don't know, but we're always doing that, aren't we? Actually, you've got to say, what does this actually look like and sound like? And then you need to filter it through your equality and diversity, which is that genuinely nothing to do with gender? That's actually to do with behaviour, and everyone can access it. It's that. Organisations are too lazy, we're just not doing that, in my humble opinion. But I'm not doing that.
Anybody any questions? We're running out of time.
Yes, sorry.
Don't worry. Any other questions? Well, Carol, that's absolutely fantastic. I will have that book list if anybody wants that, and I'll circulate that. Just please do email me. I've learned a huge amount in the last 3 quarters of an hour, despite the fact I've known Carol for so long. Let's put our hands together and say thank you to Carol.